Pamparam, pam pam param, pamparam.
Maybe you have read the books. Maybe you have played or wanted to play The Witcher 3. Maybe you have watched Netflix series. Well, in that case, I'm sorry for you. But anyway, you might have asked yourself a question. Should I play the first Witcher? Maybe you've even tried, but then quit, and are not sure whether you should force yourself to sit through the game. Let's find out. Controversial and hectic. These are the perfect words to describe this game. The first Witcher is the opposite of modern games. Modern games often have a good looking shell, but a rotten core. Microtransactions, a story written by some kindergartner, never-ending grind, making a problem then trying to sell you the solution, manipulative game design. The Witcher may look unattractive, but it has a solid core. It tries to please you. It doesn't always succeed, but it genuinely does its best. Let's begin with the technical state of the game. Back when fences were the worst enemies, when people didn't complain about fall damage because you couldn't jump to begin with. This game is getting old. It's from 2007, but graphics in this game are on the level where it doesn't make you constantly feel that you're playing something from the dinosaurs era. Textures look detailed enough to create plausible picture even now. The only exception is Wheatfield, where you can notice an obvious pattern if you look from a close distance, but apart from that, everything else seems just fine. Magic and visual effects like fire and shockwaves look impressive as well. The game even has some physics. When you cast a spell that creates a shockwave, it pushes objects lying around. But when you cast it, your frame rate drops significantly. You may also notice frame rate decrease in busy areas of the city, depending on the single core performance of a CPU, but overall experience is quite playable if you have something resembling a modern PC. Despite this game being pretty stable in terms of installation and running, it has lots of small annoyances that you'll notice while you play. They most likely won't make you quit the game, but you'll often be irritated by them. Let's talk about them. A lot of things depend on the frame rate. The more frames per second your computer can draw, the more sensitive the camera will be to the mouse input. And the problem is that you can't just set low sensitivity because the performance in this game is inconsistent. The amount of frames per second varies between 500 indoors and less than 60 on a busy street. Also at high frame rates, characters' hairs and beards frantically jump around. Selecting a die for reroll in Dice Poker becomes glitchy too. So the best solution would be setting an FPS cap via the driver or software like River Tuner because the game doesn't have a built-in limiter. Fonts are somewhat small if you play at high resolutions, so you may want to install a mod that fixes it. Otherwise, it may be hard to read stuff. By the way, mods can be downloaded from Nexus Mods. There you can find mods not only for The Witcher, but for many other games as well. The installation is easy, so I recommend you to have a look. There are two camera modes, an isometric one with 2 levels of zoom, and over-the-shoulder one which allows no zooming. And while being better in terms of control and immersion, this over-the-shoulder mode is overly zoomed in, but that can be fixed with this mod. Also, when you kill an enemy, it's hard to see the experience numbers in this camera mode because they flare up so quickly. I guess the animation is also bound to the frame rate. This mod partially helps with that too. Saves are auto-named depending on your current location. It's great, spares you a lot of time. You can quick save hitting F5, but there is a problem. Quick save creates a new save file every time you hit F5, and each save file takes from 9 megabytes at the beginning of the game to 20 megabytes at the end of the game. If you have a habit of frequently saving, at the end of the game, your save folder may look like this. Also, when the number of saves gets too high, you'll experience severe freezes when trying to access the save load menu. So don't forget to transfer your save files to a different folder from time to time. And don't forget to delete them after you finish the game, but keep the last one that you can import to The Witcher 2. Freezes also happen when your journal gets too many entries. If you want to read the outcome of a quest closer to the end of the game, you'll have to wait for about 3 seconds before the journal loads. Loading times is the scourge of this game. It doesn't matter whether you install it on an SSD or not, you'll have to always wait for something to load. The main problem here is that the world is not seamless. If you want to enter a different location or an interior, you'll have to wait for them to load. In addition, if you want to go to the upper floor or to the basement, you'll have to wait for them to load too, just like in Skyrim, though interiors in Skyrim are in fact mostly unique, and if an interior is not extensive, different levels can be accessed without loading, but here they are mostly the same copy-pasted rooms where you'll see a loading screen each time you access them. And holy crap, how annoying this is, because you have to visit them quite often. The developers tried to mitigate this issue by adding unique loading screens to some locations, and they even change depending on the time of day, but let's be honest, everyone would just prefer not to have this many loading screens. Some will note that Skyrim was released much later, but I checked some walkthroughs and it's pretty much the same with Oblivion, so I think it's a fair comparison. After all, we're discussing how the game feels today, not how it was 15 years ago. Character models look nice from a distance, they're animated using motion capture, though in dialogues they don't look that good. In cutscenes at night, characters' eyes may naturally glisten, which looks creepy in a bad way, and facial animations are, well, they're not primitive, they simply don't exist here. Characters can only open their mouths, blink and tilt their heads, so don't expect to see spectacular dialogues. In addition, the developers often reuse models even for unique characters that are important for the story, and that's a big hit to immersion. But even with these huge limitations, they managed to create well-staged, truly stunning cutscenes that make you feel like you're watching a movie.
Sergeant, that Witcher's here, the one I told you about.
Who do we have here, Mickle? Is this the man we want?
Yes, sir, Sergeant, sir. It's that filthy freak, the Witcher.
A blasphemer and a counterfeiter, do I guess well?
Yes, he asked who's allowed into the city. Then came with that letter of safe conduct from the Order.
Well, if that's a knight of the Order, then I'm Princess Ada.
Son of a bitch.
Hey, let me out of here, I'm innocent. Those £5 of Fistech were for personal use. Hey you, jailer, at least move me. I don't want to be with the politicals. Politics makes you rot. I'm a decent thief, let me out.
Shut your trap! I'm busy!
Jethro, keep it down, you looking to kill me?
That thief's bugging me.
Thief, right. And I'm here with the politicals. Scandalous.
I said shut up!
Stop screaming or on my mother's life I'll bloody smash your junky mouth.
Abso-fucking-lutely beautiful.
What's your problem, Whitey? You wanna dance to Viziman? Come on, I wanna see your hands in the air.
Jethro, open the cell.
Ooh, scared? Soft as butter. Come on, Whitey, what you got?
Back off.
What, you wanna fight or not?
Professor, move it. You're free.
How ironic, our paths cross again. So near and yet so far. Fear not, Witcher, we'll meet again. I assure you.
You're making a mistake. This man's a murderer.
You fail to grasp the basic rules governing this world. You're a genetically modified murderer with no place in modern society. But we'll tend to that problem next time. Farewell.
I can't wait.
Voice actors in their turn did their best to compensate for the lack of facial animations, and they succeeded. Even in stationary dialogues where two models just stay in the same position for the entirety of the conversation, voice actors managed to breathe life into them.
We need to be rid of him. The Witcher will slay him.
What?
Relax, we'll pay you as much as you want.
I'm a Witcher, not a hit. All right, 10,000.
Isn't that a bit much?
Come on, Foltest, the kingdom's worth a lot more than that.
Then bold Foltest uttered these words. Virtuous Radovid.
What the hell is that?
I'm trying to keep a faithful and accurate record of these events.
He said, "Stop deliberating, son. We need to put out the fire in this whorehouse."
Geralt, you have no sense of poetry. There's the truth of time and the truth of legend.
Besides cutscenes, the game can boast two cinematics. One at the beginning of the game pretty much describes who the witches are, the other, at the end of the game, serves as a starting point for The Witcher 2. Now let's talk about the level design. It's controversial. Some levels are meticulously crafted, they have lots of small details that make you believe in this world, and some levels look like the developers didn't even try to make any effort. On the one hand, what's outside, city quarters, villages, fields, forests, swamps, generally looks fantastic. The game supports day and night cycles, lighting drastically changes how different areas are perceived. The same place can be teeming with life during the day when people roam city streets, and creepy at night when monsters and bandits lurk behind the corner. Unique buildings, city layouts and landscape features make for great landmarks, so you can almost always figure out where you are without looking at the map. Though there are always exceptions. There is only one open area that genuinely looks like crap. It's the Swamp Cemetery in Chapter 5. Whoever designed this section was definitely on crack. The cemetery part of the location is actually decent, but the surrounding area consists of water and randomly placed rocks. And it looks like what? Right, like a motherfucking maze! And if you watched my video about Divine Divinity, you know that I hate mazes. You'll have to open the map every 10 seconds because it's impossible to navigate there. Another location that gets on my nerve is, well, the swamp again, but this time from Chapter 3. 2 swamp locations, god, can you believe it? Actually, it's presented in Chapter 2 as well, but there it's not that big of a problem. In Chapter 2 you can fast travel from the swamps using places of power, which are nicely distributed across the location. The only inconvenience is when you need to travel between the swamps and the city before you have received the teleportation device. You'll have to talk to the ferryman, and after you paid him, he's gonna ask if you're sure you want to depart right now. And he does this every time you need to travel. Yes, dude, I already gave you my money, I'm sure. But this is only related to Chapter 2. In Chapter 3, you can use bidirectional teleport. You don't have to talk to the ferryman anymore, but it's not that simple, because the game doesn't let you use those convenient places of power for teleportation anymore. From now on, you can only use the tower in the center of the swamp to teleport to the city and back. Well, the center of location doesn't sound that bad, right?
Wrong.
Because the tower is surrounded by bushes, you can't pass through. So if you want to go there, you'll need to run around the tower and walk through a narrow circuitous path, which sounds precisely to me like a definition of a motherfucking maze again. Let me clarify. This location is very authentic. Unlike the swamp from Chapter 5, this one looks good. Even the tower looks good, but the fact that this is a huge impassable obstacle in the center of the location won't let you wish to come back there. Had the developers removed these bushes, it would have been one of the best locations in the entire game. A couple of other areas have the same problem. Lack of passage near the bridge in the outskirts. Hairy Bear Inn is located in the slums, which is a dead end. The Murky Waters Village Inn is for some reason far away from the village itself, which seems irrational since inns are usually the centers of activity. I just don't know what the QA department was doing. How did they let something like this stay in the game? They were supposed to play it. Anyway, those flaws are mostly related to the gameplay. From an artistic standpoint, most of the open areas look inspiring. On the other hand, what's inside mostly looks boring. Caves, sewers, crypts, they're essentially copy-pasted tunnels. But it's not all that bad. These boring tunnels are not as long as in Divine Divinity, for example. Usually you don't spend more than 10 minutes there. Interiors that aren't involved in the main questline don't look attractive as well. They look copy-pasted and skimpy on details, but interiors that are important for the story are actually unique. Inns look and sound impressive. The prison is dark and gloomy as it's supposed to be. The bank looks like a bank, the hospital like a hospital, etc. So the game happens to be quite immersive in this regard. And it's the immersion that keeps this game afloat. The world of Witcher is interesting to explore, but running around is not. The problem is that your character's move speed is way too slow. Look, I'm a fat boy, but even I can run faster than this so-called mutant with inhuman agility. Sometimes the game bugs and you start running fast, but it goes away after reloading or getting pain effect and you're back being turtle again. Seriously, this is not running, it's jogging. Even the animation fits. In addition, you can't jump in this game. It means that every bush, log or hill is an obstacle you have to walk around. Remember the swamp and those locations I had been ranting about? Fortunately, you can install a mod that increases your movement speed. No, you can't, you just have to. This is mandatory, believe me. You want to run as fast as possible because the amount of backtracking in this game is insane. Even with this mod installed, you'll have regular thoughts that you're wasting your life. Let's talk about the plot now. Since this game continues the story from the books, if you haven't read them, a lot of names that tell you nothing will appear in dialogues.
What did you see, Dandelion?
I saw her tell them to put you on a boat. And there was a unicorn, and Milva, Cahir, and Angulem, and Yarpen, and Zoltan. We all witnessed it.
Most of them are rather there for the people who read the books just as references. The main characters are actually well introduced to a player, but if you see some unfamiliar name, I strongly recommend you to Google it and briefly read this character's background. Witcher Wiki fandom is a great resource for that. This way you'll have a better grasp of this universe if you are not ready to read the books. The story is beyond doubt enjoyable. The adventure begins in Witcher's stronghold, Kaer Morhen. Who are Witchers? They are former humans who underwent arduous training and survived agonizing mutations to become perfect monster slayers. The story is centered around famous Witcher Geralt of Rivia. After the events of the books, he was found unconscious by his fellow Witchers and delivered to Kaer Morhen. Turns out he has amnesia. Shortly after Geralt wakes up, Kaer Morhen is attacked by a group of bandits belonging to a criminal organization called Salamandra. The bandits manage to snatch Witcher's potion formulae and equipment required to create new Witchers and escape. The Witchers split up and go to different parts of the world to find them and return their stolen secrets. Through the course of the game, you'll visit different areas around Vizima, the capital city of the northern state Temeria, where Geralt went looking for salamanders. From rural outskirts to the perilous swamps and Vizima itself, where poverty neighbors luxury. You'll have to kill monsters and humans alike. Geralt will end up in a prison, will have to earn his freedom, and will perform an intricate investigation to find out who set him up. Further along the story, you'll understand that salamanders aren't just common bandits who happen to steal from Witchers. It turns out to be a part of a much bigger and darker story. During his main quest, Geralt gets involved in the confrontation between the Order of the Flaming Rose that claims to protect humans and Scoia'tael that claim to be freedom fighters for non-humans. As I already mentioned, Geralt has amnesia, so he must rebuild his identity. Through the course of the game, you'll have to make difficult decisions, and the consequences of those decisions usually manifest much later in the game. They're followed by a slideshow against the backdrop of which Geralt analyzes his decisions as he sees the outcome.
Tough cop, whore from the slums, true love. Love that overcomes a powerful curse. A fairy tale. In a world dominated by scorn and meanness, a world full of bandits and murderers, true love can still work wonders. Lost causes are worth a struggle. A fairy tale.
The game will definitely surprise you with a couple of cunning plot twists. Side quests aren't really what they are in other games. They're intertwined with the main quest line. Even more so, the game encourages you to do side activities. What at first glance may seem like an insignificant quest will often lead to acquiring something essential for the main quest and vice versa. And the fact that this game is fully voiced over leaves you no excuse to ignore these side activities. The only truly garbage quest I encountered was when a lady asked me to deliver some money to her cousins. 3 differently named NPCs with the same model and voice were sitting in 3 different copies of the same cave. Guess what location that quest was in? Even quests that simply require farming some ingredients from monsters have the reasons to exist. An alchemist would ask you to get him internal organs of monsters for his experiments. A hunter would ask you to get him pelts. A gravedigger would ask you to kill stray dogs that overpopulated the city slums. And a dentist would ask you to bring him teeth of different monsters for his collection. The variety of monsters is great, and what's even more important is that they aren't randomly spread across an area, but contextually bound to specific locations and have their backgrounds. Except from the fucking swamp, of course, which is basically a Vietnam. Drowners will inhabit places with water, like rivers and sewers. Ghouls can be found in crypts or places where a lot of people died recently. Echinopsis grow where terrible crimes have been committed. All those different monsters even have some sort of unique combat patterns, but it's limited due to the combat system design, which I will talk about later. Characters with their unique personalities are the strongest side of this game. Whether it's the dwarf Vivaldi, who lost control over his bank and keeps a grudge against humans,
Greetings, dwarf.
Racial segregation with the first words uttered.
or young medic Shani, who has a history with Geralt,
Who's your lady friend?
Shani, this is Carmen, a lady whose virtues you'll appreciate.
Doubt it.
Dandelion, meet.
No need, Geralt. We've met. Hello, Carmen.
What does Carmen do for a living? I'm an escort, respected throughout Vizima. I once frequented the royal court, too. The court. Fascinating.
Come on, Shani, let it go. Carmen's good.
Let's just have a drink.
Wait, what's your connection to the men present here?
Shani.
Business, sweetie. Strictly business.
Shani, don't be so touchy.
Dandelion's a notorious lecher, but you, Geralt? I'm disappointed.
You're getting wound up unnecessarily. It's a profession like any other. I hope you don't mind that I invited Carmen.
Where'd you get that idea?
Just a feeling.
Wrong feeling.
a stupid old hag who rents a room to Shani.
What? You drunk?
Not true.
Out! Don't let me see you again!
I actually found something interesting. The old lady's diary.
Ooh, show me. I wonder what Granny did when she was younger. Bet she was a real player.
One-track mind.
Dandelion's right. 5 lovers in the first few pages. Still water runs deep.
Let's drink to her health.
Here's to Granny.
I trusted you! To think what you've been doing upstairs!
Oh, die, you hag.
A Fen Staller, who happens to be an undercover secret intelligence agent.
A lot of shadowy people hang around here.
Am I a fence? Unfucking believable.
I was about to give him a piece of my mind when I noticed the men giving him signals. I was curious, so I said he broke my heart and faked fainting. Tyler said to the men, "This better be important." One of them answered, "But Chief, we hid invisible-like." Tyler said, "Your balls will be invisible-like when I shove them up your ass."
Dragadic jailer Jethro.
Damn, it's strong.
What's strong?
None of your business.
I just... Got a cold?
You're pretty green.
Not so green I don't know the best way to take Fistek. Fold back your skin and rub.
Where?
Where you can fold back your skin, Jethro.
Oh, I feel I could single-handedly stop a cavalry charge.
Captain of the City Guards Vincent Mize, who hides who he really is.
What do you do, knights? Meet your boss, Azar Javed?
Nothing unnatural about spending nights in the trade quarter.
Siegfried, a knight from the Order of the Flaming Rose, an idealist fighting to protect humans.
The Order of the Flaming Rose eliminates monsters?
Its knights protect us and ask no reward.
Unfair competition, I'd say.
Levardin, a merchant from Nilfgaard who represents a secret society.
But I still want to know why you're paying bounty hunters to track down bandits.
They're not good for business.
Your business?
All businesses. Listen, there are forces beyond your imagination at work here. Be thankful you don't know the world for what it is.
Zoltan Shive, an old friend of Geralt with a big heart and hot temper.
Once we led a group of women and children through a war-torn land. They slowed us down. We had to feed them, protect them. And we had to hide in the woods to pee instead of passing by the road. In short, they were a burden, and ungrateful at that. Know why we helped them? It was the right thing to do.
What's wrong? You all right, Zoltan? Haven't started taking Fistek, have you?
Nah, I'm just allergic to bastards.
Spare me. What's going on?
What's going on? Kids are orphaned one day and killed the next. Your precious order is slaughtering women, children, civilians, everyone. Here's what Shani said. Zoltan, how can a witcher be so stupid? Those murdering knights could have spared the civilians.
Yada, yada, yada.
Go away, you're aggravating my allergy.
And many, many others. The game also has a huge number of non-essential NPCs not related to any quests that you can talk to. Sometimes they may give you something useful, whether it's an item that you can use to get yourself a free pass or a piece of knowledge about monsters or plants.
Those bitten also become vampires and further spread the disease. To destroy one, you must drive a wooden stake through its heart and decapitate it.
Great story. But if vampires multiplied as you describe, they'd quickly control the world.
Smart ass, eh? Damn you.
But often, the very conversation with them is a reward in its own.
What's with this plague?
What of it? 'Tis some variety of the bubonic. To be safe, I avoid any who appear even slightly ill. Aren't you afraid?
I'm immune to infectious diseases.
My grandfather claimed the same, insisting all the while that his bubonic ulcers were merely boils.
May the ground lie lightly upon him.
What I also love about the plot is that when someone mentions something, it usually has some explanations later in the story. Like here, where Triss mentions that someone powerful helped the bandits.
Someone powerful, capably disguised helped Savola. Without that, I would have conquered his defenses in the lower courtyard.
Could it have been the mage we saw?
Unlikely. Geralt, please don't challenge him.
If you remember this conversation, then at the end of the game, you will understand who was she talking about. The same with this one.
The Reverend exiled his daughter when she became pregnant. Now she whores herself in Vizima.
If you don't neglect one particular side quest, you'll figure this out. But surely, there are some flaws in the story too. Everyone in this world seems to know Geralt. Well, he's a reputed witcher after all. The plot revolves around his amnesia, and many characters tell him about his past and mention other characters from the books. But they completely ignore the most prominent of them, Yennefer and Ciri specifically. There's some mentions about ashen hair witcher girl, but it's hidden somewhere deep in the secondary dialogue. And about Yennefer? Well, they mentioned a sorceress once. Another major oversight is at the ending of the game. You see, in the prologue, 3 witchers are introduced to you: Vesemir, Eskel and Lambert. They all have their unique characters and their voice actors perfectly match these characters. But after such a great introduction, they're completely gone from the story. If only the game ended with you meeting them again and summing up your journey, it would have been a much stronger finale. But instead, you just have a small talk with Dandelion. Even Triss won't show up despite being directly involved, so the story lacks proper conclusion. Plot holes are frequent guests too. There is a boy called Alvin, he's an important character, the entire story revolves around him. And you know what? He just literally disappears from the story for the entire chapter and then reappears as if nothing happened. And there is not a single line of text that says, "Hey, where the fuck did Alvin go?"
Reborn of elder blood, of hen Icaire, of a planted seed, a seed that will not sprout but burst into flames.
Now, I told you about the story, but there is more to it. Not the story itself, but rather how it's presented to the player. There's an investigation in Chapter 2, and the developers tried to make it in a non-linear manner. Let's say you can learn the grand truth in 3 ways, 2 of which are perfectly fine. First one is just a good logical deduction made during the investigation. Second one is an obvious piece of evidence just hidden somewhere. You can find it if you decide to investigate on your own. But the third one is like, okay, he's guilty, I have irrefutable proof. But the thing is, you don't have any proof. You haven't even seen anything that might set you on this path. It's not a deduction, it's a fucking clairvoyance. Also, during the investigation in Chapter 2, you can get leads to the same place from several people. But getting it from one removes the dialogue option from the rest. And it sucks. Those are unique, character-specific dialogues. It's also the case with some replies from NPCs, Talos specifically. If you don't have enough clues to decide if he's innocent or guilty, he throws a great punchline.
Innocent until proven guilty, I guess. So let's assume it's not you for now.
I'd say so. Goddamn Dijkstra, ace spy. Dog's balls, what a clever analysis. If you figure anything out and need more information, creep on over and we'll talk.
In addition, if you accidentally learn the grand truth or found the definitive proof, you lose the opportunity to prove a person innocent by deduction. And if you are not proving the innocence of people by deduction, you lose so many funny scenes that define this game's unique attitude.
I've figured out Salamandra.
We'll see.
Let's summarize.
I'm really fucking interested.
There's nothing to this story.
What's your problem?
You're no criminal genius, Taller, though you might like to be.
So who am I? Some pious priestess's virginity that she lost in a dark alley?
A little conniver who buys debts to feel important, to have power over people if only for a moment.
That hurt, Geralt.
You talk a bundle, but when push comes to shove, you hide under the city guard's bibs. You lack balls.
Shut the fuck up.
I've nearly completed my investigation.
Go ahead. I have a little patience left.
Let's summarize the facts.
I'm more curious about your conclusions.
Not all your money is clean.
You can't make a living cultivating violets.
Spare me. You bribe guards to ignore your contraband.
You say contraband. I say importation.
You finance illegal schemes.
I'm diversifying risk.
And you belong to a secret society.
A broad network of associates.
All your associates would eliminate you if you threatened the stability of their investments.
Nice analysis. Let's discuss this no further.
I've figured out Azar Javed's contacts.
Any guilty non-humans involved?
And because of it, their motives remain unclear for the player, and you lose part of the story. That's why I don't like when people try to make a big game in a non-linear fashion. In pursuit of a great variety of alternatives, they make this story look like spaghetti, a goddamn Frankenstein, when the order of completion is not reflected and they try to stitch those pieces together, but you can't assemble a cohesive story from pieces of dialogues. The funny thing is that they probably had a solid plot, then they cut it in parts and were like, dude, we have a variability in our game. But it's not a Lego, it's gonna look fake. I think anyone would prefer a well-structured, linear story to this. In The Witcher 3 they managed to make it seamless and accounted for multiple decisions, but in this game it proved to be too ambitious for them. Fortunately, this scrap is mostly limited to Chapter 2. Later the game becomes more straightforward and consistent. Depending on the options you choose in dialogues, you can piss off some characters.
Who are the Scoia'tael?
Terrorists, or firebrands you'd call them. They're fighting for the rights of non-humans. Scoia'tael is Elven for squirrels, called that due to the squirrel tails that dangle from their caps.
Will I find any around here?
You aiming to catch me off guard or just nosy? In any case, I'll not answer you.
Fine. I wouldn't want to cause you trouble. Let's talk about something else. Do you trade with them?
Fuck off! You won't provoke me. Shove off, troublemaker!
They will refuse to talk to you again for some time, so if you did this, don't worry, you can visit them later. The only problem is that the game is not very responsive in terms of secondary characters. You may make some progress, but they will treat you as if they don't know you.
Ladies first.
Perhaps I shouldn't. What if my new frock gets dirty?
Don't worry. We Witchers have solutions for that.
Watch where you step, idiot.
What is it? Something haunts the old mill again.
Seems so. Maybe we need a Witcher to look into it.
Ah, they're never around when you need them. They'll have to wait. Any monster here today will stay until tomorrow. Certainly no sense in sending anyone else.
What can I get you?
Nothing now. But care to sit down with me for a moment?
Not likely. I'm a decent girl. I'm at work now.
You mean to say you stop being decent after work?
How dare you? What a bore. Go plow yourself, pervert.
Some quests like Dice Poker don't require you to play every possible opponent. 4 is enough to advance to the next stage. But the problem is that the dialogue options disappear from the rest of the possible gamblers as soon as the counter hits 4. Imagine missing this one.
You gamble?
I'm an abso-fucking-lutely great poker player. Why?
Care to play?
Got balls enough?
Try me.
Better believe I fucking will, even now.
Some NPCs can be found only in specific places at specific times, and there are no markers on the map suggesting where to look. That would be the quest with the widow and her husband's ghost. You have to visit the cemetery specifically at noon. How are you supposed to know this? I don't have a clue. One more quest that is easy to miss is the fist fight with Eskel. You have to check him in a narrow window after you gave the potion to Triss at the end of the prologue and refused to go downstairs with her, which I'm sure 99% of the players didn't do. It's especially frustrating if you missed something in earlier chapters, because you can't come back. I missed one of the trophy quests and I realized that only after 15 hours, and this is one of the quests you want to complete. Because if you finish the whole quest line, you receive one of the best swords in the game, which you can import into the next game. Also, some NPCs that you can have a conversation with have the same nameplate color as the ordinary crowd. And sometimes they even have the same names. That's a fucking joke. Yet another opportunity to miss something interesting. This shows how important quest markers in modern games are. I beat this game twice before, and every time, including this playthrough, I fucked something up. So recommend you not to rush the main quest and always thoroughly check everything. Look in every house and click every NPC. This reminded me of Red Dead Redemption 2, a masterpiece where an enormous amount of time was spent to create a huge number of encounters, and you know what? The motherfucking game tries to hide content from you. Just put a goddamn question mark if there is something interesting. But the fun part is just beginning. If you'll be too thorough in your exploration, the game is gonna punish you for snooping around. You can find a quest item or visit a quest location before acquiring the quest, which is not good. The game doesn't have unique lines about it, and it breaks the logical sequence. Especially if you had a long break and can't remember what you were doing. You can accidentally skip half of the quest line where you fight alongside a druid and his tamed wyvern by finding Salamander's camp in the swamps too early and killing the bandits there. Or you may find a house with a lady that has Dandelion's loot before getting the quest that sends you there and miss the dialogue, if you know what I mean. So let me elaborate my statement about checking everything. When you get a quest or find something interesting, for Christ's sake Google it. Go to the wiki and read the notes section. Look for something like, you're about to fuck up the quest order. You may also use the guide provided by the developers. It's located in the games folder. All the main and side quests are listed there. So when you're close to the end of the chapter, it may be a good idea to check the list of quests to see if you have missed something. Besides the guide, the game folder contains a very informative manual which describes the game mechanics. Now, as we're getting closer to the gameplay, let's discuss the inventory management and the interface. The art design of the maps is beautiful, but the interface on top of those maps is not very informative. Everything on the map is marked in plain circles. These circles have different colors, but it doesn't help that much. Different icons for different objects would have been great here. Also, to actually see what a circle means, you have to hover the mouse pointer over it, and if they are close to each other, you will have problems pointing at some of them. Journal entries are updated when you learn something new. Unfortunately, the game doesn't show what part of the entry is new exactly. Some sort of indication, a different color, for example, would have been perfect here. Also, when you have a lot of journal entries, you'll have to scroll them all over looking for the updated ones. And later in the game, it becomes really hard to track those changes, especially hard when they're lagging, remember? So it would have been also nice to have sorting by update date, but we have what we have. A cool feature of the game is that all weapons you carry are actually displayed on your character's model, but that is a downside at the same time. You can't put items like weapons and armor into your inventory, you can only put them on yourself. Also, any weapons other than swords are basically useless. There are short and heavy weapons that can be used, but they can't compete with swords. Witcher styles simply don't work with them. It's a real shame that you can't just swing an axe effectively.
Axe attacks!
And overall, the game can't boast a huge variety in gear. The number of steel swords is somewhat sensible, but most of them are trash, and there are only 3 silver swords. You can also craft meteorite and rune swords which correspond to steel and silver swords respectively, but there is nothing exciting about crafting. You need 3 runes or pieces of meteorite, and depending on the combination you get different stats. The armor is even more scarce. There are only 3 pieces of armor, one of which is given to you at the beginning of the game, so the progression in The Witcher is kinda weak. Inventory system is not very clever either. It's slot based and you can stack different items only to some extent. If you exceed the limit, they take an additional slot, and you don't have that many of them. Considering how much stuff you often have to carry, inventory management gets tedious. It's also immensely annoying that you even have to manage your alchemy ingredients, which have their separate inventory section, and you can't expand the storage. Yes, you can store items at the innkeepers, but you can't even sort them there. Personally, I think that a game should entertain you in every aspect. If some games make inventory management pretty clever, just like another minigame inside the main game, like in Stalker, which is weight-based, or in Minecraft, which is slot-based, The Witcher fails here. And if something bores you, get rid of it. After all, you play games to have fun, so once again, mods to the rescue. I also recommend a mod that adds color bars under different alchemical ingredients, which makes managing them a lot easier. Now let's talk about the most important part of any game. What makes a game a game? Right, gameplay. And since I mentioned minigames, there are a few. Drinking contest, fist fighting, and dice poker.
Hocus pocus focus on this. Your mother stands when she wants to piss.
Ah, a challenge. How much?
50 orange to enter.
Well, I'm about 50 orange short, but I can kick your ass for free if you want.
Ugh. You're no stranger to fighting.
My mother taught me. What would you say about her now?
Nice lady. Here's your prize. All right. I guess your mother was an honorable woman.
They are very primitive and boring and only worth playing because they are parts of the quests. And if the first two don't consume an enormous amount of time, the dice poker is the most rigged gambling piece of shit I have ever seen in my life. Don't waste your time on this crap and install a mod that allows you to win or lose in one round instead of having a best of 3 set of rules. And even with this mod, you're still going to throw hours of your life in a trash can. Combat system. It is something I have never seen in any other game. It's basically a rhythmic clicker. You have to press the primary mouse button, then wait for the cursor to turn yellow and press it again. This is how you perform a series of attacks. If you missed the window, you have to start the sequence again. You also have 3 different combat styles, a strong, a fast and a group one. The strong style has increased damage output, but light targets will easily dodge your attacks. In the fast style, you attack quickly but deal less damage. Also heavy targets may easily block this type of attack. And the group style is just a steroid version allowing you to damage up to 9 targets simultaneously. But it works only when you are outnumbered. And other than changing mode, it affects nothing. Your playstyle is still going to consist of clicks. The fights are stationary and you don't have any control on parrying, blocking or dodging. And I've seen dudes that praise this system and complain how crappy combat in Witcher 3 is, but it's a goddamn dice roll, not a skill-based combat. The only cool feature is that these styles actually have their lore background. Also, you can use 2 types of swords. Silver swords are effective against monsters, ghosts and magical creatures. Steel swords are effective in fighting people and animals. Sounds cool, but one of the major problems with this combat system is delays. This game doesn't respect your time at all. When in combat, it takes an uncomfortable amount of time to draw or sheath your sword. When combat ends, you also can't loot corpses straight away. You have to wait for about 2 seconds. Because of this, the game feels unresponsive. It's the same with fist fights. They're slow to start and finishing animation takes too long. Drinking contest too. The same animation over and over again. When you have to show someone a pass, it plays an animation too with long transitions, and I don't mind having these animations, but only when they are contextual, like in Red Dead Redemption 2, where the same action can look differently depending on the environment. Unfortunately, in The Witcher, they quickly become a routine. There is also a primitive magic you can use in this game called Signs. There are 5 of them. Igni ignites your enemies, Ard knocks them down allowing you to finish them in a single blow, Quen protects you from attacks, Irden traps enemies, and Axii forces an enemy to temporarily fight at your side. There are multiple ways to build your character. There are bronze, silver and golden talents that you can invest into different skills. Each level you get talents in different proportions, depending on your current level. Though it's not possible to redistribute talents, you can't really go wrong. Just read the ability and take it if it fits your style. You can learn almost everything with your bronze talents, but think twice before spending silver and golden ones. But globally you have 2 options. You either focus on swordsman skills or magic. You can make some sort of hybrid build, but it's much less efficient. You can also brew all sorts of potions which augment your abilities. There are 6 basic substances. Each herb or monster body part contains only one of them. You create a potion by mixing the ingredients that have a certain combination of substances. Ingredients may also contain 1 of the 3 additional substances. If all ingredients in a mix contain the same additional substance, you get a potion with a bonus effect depending on the additional substance. In addition, you can make bombs that set different effects on enemies and oils that increase the damage of your sword. Some potions are unique and crafted from special ingredients from bosses. Each of them can be crafted only once. Imbibing them gives you additional talents. The game can also be paused during combat to drink potions, apply oils, or change combat style. The variety in potions and oils is huge, but there is one major problem. You can craft them only when meditating, and you almost never know what type of opponent you are going to encounter and what potion may be useful. And because your inventory is not infinite, and you probably don't want to bother with reloading and looking for the campfire to meditate and prepare a potion, you end up carrying a very limited set of potions with general effects like increased health or stamina regeneration, and the one allowing you to see in the dark. So the alchemy is not particularly appealing in this game. Geralt has a Witcher medallion, and you can toggle between the two modes of this medallion. One to detect monsters, the other to detect magic. By magic it means places of power from which you could draw the energy and temporarily boost particular sign intensity. A good concept it would have been if it worked, because after the next loading screen it resets automatically to monster detection, and you don't really need to detect monsters, you can easily see them from far away on your screen. So this medallion turns out to be either useless or an annoying feature. The only situation where it actually fits was the main quest, where it starts vibrating like hell and hints to you that something is wrong, but it does so despite the current mod. The game also has a number of boss fights, and even with massive limitations of the combat system, fights with them are pretty unique and require some level of creativity. And badass soundtracks during boss fights definitely create some epic atmosphere.
I come at your command, Master. I listen and obey as a genie would.
Professor, cut the crap and get in.
You see, Witcher? Too much water around for Azat to feel comfortable. Fire mage is limited. He needs me to do the wet work.
Good. 2 worms with 1 stone.
You present no challenge. Azar, you fool! Let the Witcher get the better of you. You nearly got me killed.
Silence. Back to the base of the trade quarter. Hurry before he recovers.
We shall meet again, freak.
And there are also monsters that I think are supposed to be some sort of semi-bosses, but they're just an enlarged version of casual monsters, and fights with them don't feel unique and often end up with you one-shotting them.
Вы зачем так смать?
Витя! One-shot.
Also, fights with what are supposed to be incorporeal monsters look strange because of the game engine limitations. How can you possibly knock back a ghost, for example? You can buy books from merchants and read important stuff about the Witcher universe. They aren't long and don't break the pace of the game. There are 2 types of books. Books of the first type serve strictly as game lore. Books of the second type contain knowledge on specific plants or monsters, and after reading, let you collect alchemical ingredients from them. Some books are required to be read to make the right conclusion when performing an autopsy during the investigation. It's actually pretty interesting to read all those books. The same can be said about journal entries such as important characters, locations, events, or even quest descriptions. Sometimes you're given 2 lines in a dialogue, and one line leads straight to the end of the conversation, and another elaborates onto something and includes that first line. But tell me, how the fuck am I supposed to know this if I didn't reload to check what this other line was about? So that's a big minus to the game that presents itself as an RPG. How could this have been avoided? Just by adding an indicator like end in parentheses. So if you intend to play, keep this in mind. The voice acting is generally good, though sometimes transitions are abrupt and don't look like a real conversation. It's rather like someone is reading a book. It lacks some flaw, I should say. The dialogue sometimes may sound a bit naive, but nothing repulsive. The overall impression is definitely positive. When you come close to an important location, Geralt provides a brief commentary about it.
St. Lebioda's hospital for victims of the Catriona plague. Only 2 stages after this. Old Vizima and Hell. Damn, I'm gloomy.
If it's raining, NPCs will be hiding under the closest roof. NPCs also live by their schedule. They can visit the market, walk in the hospital, or walk around the city. At night they go to sleep at the houses. All of this makes the world of The Witcher alive. Ambient and combat music complement the atmosphere. From grim to vivid, it sets the right mood for every context. It depends if it's night or day. By the way, loading screens depend on it too. Whether you are in an inn, or on the busy streets of Vizima, or fighting monsters or bandits, or just exploring the wild, it fits everywhere. As you may have noticed, the game is filled with humor. So many opportunities to laugh, and this doesn't contradict the overall serious and sinister mood of the game. The humor style is very similar to the Divinity series, and that's definitely a compliment.
Yes?
Did you finish the lycanthropy potion?
Yes, but she will administer it at her own risk once she drops in one of her tears. The potion needs a virgin's tear to work.
Wait, you said nothing about a virgin.
You said a young maiden. I assumed she wasn't yet married.
Ah, Kalkstein. You need to get out more. Where will I find a virgin?
A virgin's tear is vital. It can't be difficult to find one.
The number of flaws I mentioned may start scaring you away, but that's not the point of this video. It's just easier to talk about negative aspects, because when something is well done, it doesn't draw attention, we take it for granted. Well, the biggest problem here is the gameplay for sure. The combat and movement are very clunky, the majority of people consider this being boring as fuck, and I agree. The only solution if you want to beat the game is to accept that. Just set the right expectations and try to chill. Explore every corner you can so you don't miss anything story related. Check the wiki if you need to. Play at a comfortable pace for you. Don't rush the main quest, do side activities first. Speak with the same character after you have made some progress. They may tell you something new. Focus on a strong story and this terrifyingly beautiful and atmospheric world. If you don't like some aspect of the game, you can polish it. Just check mods. Someone with knowledge in programming probably didn't like that either. After all, this game is not that much about combat. It's not even about monsters, it's about people and what they hide. And unlike graphics and gameplay, a good story never gets old. This game is worth finishing at least because you can import saves from it into the second game, from which you can also import saves into the third one. Unfortunately, the decisions you make are often ignored by the developers in The Witcher 2 and The Witcher 3, so it's not like Mass Effect. They either don't mention the decisions at all or speak about them in a very general manner, without specifying the details. But when you play a sequel, your attachment to the characters from the previous game doesn't go anywhere. And can we really criticize a game for what a sequel under-delivered? So I insist that you try to finish this game. First time I played it, I dropped it. Second time, I beat this game and I said I will never play this again. Third time, I said well, it wasn't that bad actually. Fourth time, I've developed Stockholm Syndrome.
Oh shit, here we go again.
This is the game that would definitely benefit from a remake. It's interesting how graphics themselves have not dated that much, but the game mechanics have. Usually it's the other way around. And yeah, while I was making this video, CDPR announced that they are working on a remake, but knowing how they failed with Cyberbug, how they upgraded The Witcher 3 by just piling on a bunch of mods, when 4090 became not enough to get 60 frames per second and 84K in a game from 2015. So don't wait for it and play the original. If the remake miraculously happens to be a decent game like Mafia Definitive Edition, you can always play it and have fun. But if it ends up being crap, at least you won't regret you've been waiting for so long. And by the time it finally arrives, you can actually beat the whole trilogy. Yes, I almost forgot, there's also additional content in the game. There are 7 short stories and only 2 of them are voiced over. In my opinion, you should definitely play The Price of Neutrality. During this story, you'll have a chance to explore the area around Kaer Morhen, and it looks fantastic. I still can't understand how it was removed from the main game and we got crap like the swamp in chapter 5 instead. You'll learn how Eskel got his scar and will meet Sabrina Glevisic, who is a secondary character in The Witcher 2. Side Effects is voiced over too, but it's not connected with anything else. It's just a story where Dandelion borrows a lot of money without intention of returning them, and you have to pay his debt so he's not fed to some nasty creatures. And if you want to do side quests, you're gonna waste about 1.5 hours doing nothing because half of the characters want to play dice poker with you. And most of them you will have to play 3 times, and every one of them is
the most famous dice player around, out fucking standing, a real goddamn magician.
So this expansion and the rest of them, which aren't even voiced over and of lower quality, aren't worth your time. They have a couple of interesting ideas, but compared to the main game, there is no reward for sitting through them. They also have problems with progression, the lack of it that is. Your loot and skill points don't matter because you'll lose them in like 2 hours. The events take place in the same locations as the main game and you're most likely fed up with them by this time, so you won't miss anything if you skip these adventures. Well, looks like that was it. I hope I was able to convince you to give this game a shot. See ya.
I'd like to bury a man in the crypt beneath the church.
Inside the crypt lies a crumbling sarcophagus.
Crumbling?
Rather dig a ditch?
I'll take the sarcophagus.